It is March 18th, 2014, and I'm Meredith Hatch. I'm an Assistant Director of Programs here at Achieving the Dream. I'm joined by several of my colleagues today. I have Rhonda Glover, our National Director of Data Coaching and Data Strategy. I'm Meredith Hatch. We're also joined by Laura Heacock, our Director of Data Services, Sarah Hollister, an Associate Director of Programs, Julia Watson, Assistant Director of Programs, Melanie Mulvey, Assistant Director of Programs, and Wei Song. Now I'm going to pass it to my colleague Melanie, who's going to talk a little bit about the GoToWebinar technology that we're using.
Okay, thanks, Meredith. So since some of you may be new to using our webinar, I just want to talk about the technology we're using. We want to make sure to have a bit of interaction and allow you to ask all the questions that you need to. So first, you'll see, like just what's showing on the slideshow, that you have a control panel. It may disappear every once in a while, so make sure that you hit the Grab tab, which is pictured as B on the side here. If at any point you would like to ask a question, there are two ways that you can do that. So you can either click on the hand raise icon, and actually just to test that everyone has that functionality and that everyone can hear me, I'm going to ask that everyone who can hear me, please click on the hand raise icon. All right. Okay. If you can hear me, click on the hand raise icon. All right. Great. Thank you. So it looks like everyone understands that. So another way you can ask questions is to type them in the question pane. And I can either answer those privately or respond to them out loud. And so we do have a couple of times reserved throughout the webinar to go through questions, so we may load your questions until then. If at any point you have problems with audio, please make sure that you have entered the audio pin given to you at the beginning of the webinar. If you continue to have issues, you can sign out and then sign back in with the audio pin. And that's it, so we'll get started.
Thank you, Melanie. So first, why an annual reflection? The annual reflection provides your institution an opportunity to consider your Achieving the Dream work over the past year and to plan for the coming year. The reflection that you share with Achieving the Dream will be reviewed by your coaches and Achieving the Dream, and you will receive feedback from Achieving the Dream in the late summer or early fall of 2014. Now I'll go over today's agenda. We'll walk you through the annual College Progress website, where instructions, templates, and documents are available for download. We will also review the components of the annual reflection, which include the Leader College application and Leader College Recertification application for those designations. And we'll also talk about how you can submit your annual reflection components to Achieving the Dream. Then, like Melanie was just saying, we'll provide plenty of time for you to ask questions and time for us to respond to those questions. Now I'll pass the microphone to Julia, who's going to talk about the annual College Progress site.
Thank you, Meredith. So this year we have a dedicated page on our website for colleges to access all of the information and the documents that you need to complete your annual reflection. This is called the Annual College Progress page, and you can see this on your screen now. You can access it via the URL achievingthedream.org/annual college progress. Once you've navigated to this page, you will click on the Year 2 and Beyond for the 2012 cohort or earlier documents, and this will take you to all of the instructions and documents that you need to complete the annual reflection. Once you've clicked on this, you'll be taken to the page you can see now. This details the component to be completed, the instructions on how to complete each component, and the deadline for that component. In the instructions section, you can also access downloadable documents, such as the annual reflection narrative template. Once you click on this, it will open the document in a separate web page, and you'll be able to download the document by clicking on the download button in the bottom left-hand corner. So there are 4 key components of the annual reflection, 3 of which are required and 1 of which is optional. The first required component is having stakeholders complete the online principles assessment survey. This is due by April 10th, so that Achieving the Dream can provide you with a summary of the results, and you will use this in your annual reflection narrative. The second required component is the annual reflection narrative. The third is the intervention showcase update. This is an online searchable tool that Achieving a Dream has developed, and it can be accessed on our website in the Resources tab. We ask that you update each of the intervention descriptions you shared with Achieving a Dream in April 2013 and add any new interventions from this year. The final and the optional component is the Leader College application, and this is for the initial application or recertification. Final 3 components are all due by May 8th. So we're now going to look at each component in a little bit more detail. So starting with the Principals Assessment Survey. This is a survey designed to guide stakeholders in reflecting on your institution's progress towards improving student outcomes. We ask that you send the survey to a relevant group of stakeholders involved in your student success work. Please note that each college's work is different, so we ask that you send the survey to the most appropriate group for your unique work. The survey must be completed online, so please make sure that when you send the survey out that you remind the participants to click the Submit button at the end of the survey to ensure that we receive the results. Achieving the Dream will then aggregate the responses and send a summary to your core team leader by April 23rd, and you will use this when writing your annual reflection narrative.
Thank you, Julia. So Julia just spoke about the Principals Assessment Survey, and now I'm going to speak about the annual reflection narrative. You'll complete the annual reflection narrative using the template that we provide on the annual college progress site. You will want to reflect on activities from May 2013 to April 2014 in your annual reflection narrative. And when you're finished with your annual reflection narrative, your core team leader will use a link that they receive in an email from Achieving the Dream. We'll send our first email on April 4th and then several other copies of the email as it gets closer to the deadline date. The annual reflection narrative is due on May 8th. Next, I'll walk you through the components of the annual reflection narrative. I'll talk about each of the 7 sections that are all listed on this slide. So the first section is contributors to the annual reflection. We ask that your institution engage a representative group of stakeholders in the annual reflection process. And here we ask for you to provide the names of the contributors to this annual reflection, as well as their titles. If your institution engages many folks in this process, you may need to add more rows to the table that we provide, and you are welcome to do so. The second section is the student experience. So here we ask for you to provide 2 to 3 paragraphs on the student experience. And we want you to focus on what ways is your institution's reform work transforming or changing the way that students are experiencing college. The third section is the progress statement. Here we would like for you to provide about 1 page, no more than 2, on your institution's progress over the last academic year, how you've improved student success, and we ask that you consider both positive and challenging factors affecting your institution's student success efforts. Here's where you could include aspects related to your college culture and environment. You may want to talk about leadership changes, engagement of faculty, reaffirmation of accreditation, items such as that. Now, earlier, Julia spoke about the Principals Assessment Survey. The next section of the annual reflection is where we ask for you to provide a brief analysis of your institution's responses regarding the Principals Assessment. And the principles are those 5 key Achieving the Dream principles. So we ask for you to comment on the responses to each of those 5 principles here in this 4th section of the annual reflection. Now I'll pass the microphone to my colleague Lori, who's going to talk about the next section of the annual reflection on student success data trends.
Are you there, Lori?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Great. Go ahead, Lori. Maybe having some technical difficulties. Give Lori one more second to see if she can get her audio to work. Lori, are you there?
I'm having trouble with my audio. Can you?
We can hear you fine now.
We can hear you now. Do you feel comfortable proceeding?
It would be, I had asked you to do this because I've got bronchitis. So could you walk through the
Sure. Okay, great. So we'll talk a little bit about this next section where we ask for you to comment on your student success data trends. Here we ask for your institution to review and discuss your institution's disaggregated data for the 5 Achieving the Dream student success outcome measures. Please note here that Achieving the Dream has clarified these 5 measures, and you can find this clarification in Appendix A of the annual reflection narrative. You'll want to look at this before your institution begins its analysis of the data. I also want to note that your institution will provide a chart or graph for at least one of these 5 measures. So I've talked a little bit about those 5 Achieving the Dream student success measures and how we ask that your institution provides a chart or a graph. And now I'll talk a little bit about the data. So we ask for you to respond to some questions about each of those 5 outcome measures. And so we ask for you to describe your institution's progress in comparison with previous year's outcomes. And we ask for you to explain your institution's progress in closing achievement gaps among the disaggregated student groups. We also ask for you to outline your institution's plans for sustaining and building increases and addressing decreases and achievement gaps for each of those measures. Now we'll go into a little bit more detail about the chart or the graph. So, as I mentioned, for at least one measure mentioned in your annual reflection narrative, we ask that your institution provides a chart or a graph. And this chart or graph will, when you submit your annual reflection, be uploaded as a separate document. Achieving the Dream provides a few tools that can help you create this chart or graph. The first option is to use the Achieving the Dream data template, and this is an Excel template that institutions can use to enter data and to track student cohorts. You can access the ATD data template on the annual college progress site, and you can see an example of a completed template in Appendix B of the annual reflection narrative. Next, I'll talk for just a minute about the ATD data products. And these products are based on your student success data submitted to Achieving the Dreams database. One of these data products is an Excel workbook that provides summarized data for ATD student outcome measures by student cohort and disaggregated into subgroups. To access these data products, please log on to our data submission site, and that's www.dreamwebsubmission.org. Your third option for this chart or graph is to submit a self-generated chart or graph that your institution has created. Now, moving on to the next section, here's where we ask for you to write about your goals and plans for 2014 and 15. So in the annual reflection process, you'll be completing an analysis of your progress over the past year. And so here we ask for you to outline at least 3 goals and then 2 to 3 planned action steps that will help you advance these goals in the 2014-15 academic year at your institution. And the final section of the annual reflection narrative document is sharing. And in the sharing section, we'd like for you to write any additional information that you'd like to share about your institution's progress or reflection, and anything that you may want Achieving the Dream and your leadership and data coaches to know. Some folks choose to share about presidential transitions here or recognition that your institution has received. So again, please discuss anything else here in this sharing section. Now Julia is going to talk more about the intervention showcase.
Thank you, Meredith. So the third component of the annual reflection process is to update the intervention showcase. This allows colleges in the Achieving the Dream network to learn a bit about each other's student success efforts. It also allows Achieving the Dream to better connect colleges that are working on similar areas. In order to do this, we need our colleges to keep us up to date with their student success work. We ask that you use the simple online system to add new interventions and update existing interventions by going to the annual progress site and following the link to the intervention showcase. So on your screen now, you can see a screenshot of our intervention showcase on the website. If you haven't explored the intervention showcase yet, we recommend that you do so by going onto the resources tab of our website or by following the URL achievingthedream.org/interventions. Once you reach the page, you will see you can filter the interventions that you can see by a wide range of variables using the drop-down boxes on the right-hand side. In this example, we have filtered by ELL or ESL interventions. Once you have identified an intervention that you would like to learn more about, you can click on it for more detailed information, which is what you can see on the screen now. This again is an example of an intervention targeted for ELL or ESL students. So this is also the information that we ask you to update. When you go to enter information into the showcase, you will see a screen much like the one you see now. All you will have to do is, once you log in, is to update the intervention information from the previous year or add information for new interventions in the online form. You have buttons that you can click or drop-downs that you can select, so it's fairly simple. We also ask that you enter a summative description of the intervention. This is similar to Word, so you can copy and paste text into the box and add formatting to make it clearer. Okay, next slide.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Julia. So now we'd like to open it up for questions. So please either type your questions into the questions bar or raise your hand, and we'll unmute you and open your line for you to ask that question.
So we have one question. We completed the Principals Assessment Survey last year. Do we need to administer it every year?
Thanks for that question. So the question was about having completed the Principals Assessment last year, and does it need to be completed again this year? The answer is yes. We ask that you use the Principals Assessment Survey each year, and that you comment on the results that you received from the survey this year in the 2014 annual reflection. Thank you.
Next question is there a specific number you are looking to have participate in the survey?
This is Sarah Hollister. So there's not a specific number that we're looking to have participate in the survey. So each college is going to have a different group of stakeholders that's relevant to their student success work that they will send the information out to and want to get input on. We do encourage that colleges engage as broad a group of stakeholders as possible. We really see this as a tool for colleges to take the temperature, so to speak, on the reach and the depth of understanding in your community about your student success work. So I think colleges can see this as a great opportunity to engage as many stakeholders in the survey as possible. But of course, it's institution specific as to the exact number that might entail.
Okay, the next question is, are you going to go over the Leader College application, or is it self-explanatory based on the information just reviewed?
Okay, thanks for the question. So the next part of the presentation will be about the Leader College application and recertification and the components as part of that application, as well as how to submit all of the documents that we just discussed. We just wanted to pause to give folks a chance to ask any questions they might have about the annual reflection narrative. Are there any other questions, Melanie?
Is it mandatory to participate in the intervention showcase?
So the intervention showcase is a required component of the annual reflection process. And one of the main benefits of the intervention showcase is that we're able to share with colleges that are in the Achieving the Dream National Reform Network what colleges are doing, so that you can create this community around certain interventions and learn from each other. So we do ask that you complete the intervention showcase update this year.
Can we, as a college, customize the reports from the Principals Assessment Survey?
So if you're using the online survey link that Achieving the Dream has provided, there's no way to customize the reports. It's a standard report that is a summary of all of your responses that is provided to each college. Some colleges have taken it upon themselves to create a customized survey by copying and pasting all of the questions into their own online survey template. And we are open to colleges pursuing this if they'd like. But in order, the ease of the online tool has been created by Achieving the Dream in order to assist your college.
How should I administer this survey? Should it be from the link that you sent, or should I direct everyone to your site?
So I think that's a great question. I think it's really up to each college about how they'd like to distribute the survey. You could copy and link and send it out via an email to everyone that you'd like to complete the survey. Or if you'd like to direct them to the site and exactly where to find the survey link on the site, then that's certainly one way to do it as well.
All right. There's another question noting that our screenshot says May 10th for the annual reflection due, the front page, or at least that is how it was before. We just want to confirm that the annual reflection, along with many of the other components, are due on May 8th. So please excuse the typo. The link on our website should be updated to reflect the correct date. So it is May 8th that the narrative is due. All right. Should your goals in Part 6 coincide with the priorities you have submitted in regards to your assessment plan?
I think that that's a reference to your implementation plan that perhaps was submitted either last year or previous years. So the progress of colleges in Achieving the Dream is that they have an initial planning year, and then the college submits an implementation plan that indicates their plans for their student success work. Of course, the implementation plan should be a guide to your student success work. However, the implementation plan and the priorities attached to that is a living working document. And so we understand that if your goals have changed, that's certainly understandable, and we just ask that you give us a small explanation of that. And of course, your coaches can also provide you some feedback on those goals in relation to your implementation plan.
Great. Yes. And so they were referring to the implementation plan. A similar question: are interventions limited to those submitted as part of the ATD annual plan, or can we include others? I think that's
a great question. So can you include interventions other than what you've listed in your implementation plan? Absolutely. You should include your student success interventions in the intervention showcase, whether you submitted them in your implementation plan or not. And you have the option of sharing when an intervention started, and I think that that will be helpful to your institution and to others who will learn from your institution about its interventions.
All right. So we have a few questions around a similar thing, asking if there's a way to find out how many people have responded to the principal's assessment survey so that they know whether or not to send out a reminder, and who would be the contact person to inquire about how many people have submitted that survey.
Sure. So if you have questions about the principal's assessment survey, please direct them to info@achievingthedream.org. Again, that's info@achievingthedream.org, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have about the principal's assessment, including how many responses we've received for your institution so far.
Can we send the principal's assessment results before April 21st as the narrative is due May 8th?
Sure. So if your institution needs the results to your principal's assessment survey earlier than April 23rd, again, just send a message to info@achievingthedream.org, and we'll be able to work with your institution on getting the results to you when you need them.
On page 7, Roman numeral 2, can you please clarify the instruction, please provide one response per outcome?
This is in regards to the data question. And perhaps maybe, Melanie, perhaps maybe we could pull that up, and in the meantime, I could talk a little bit about the Leader College application, and then we could get back to that question. Great. So I just want to be sure that we have. So that's a great question, and we'll go ahead and follow up with that in our next question section. I just want to make sure that we have time to review the Leader College application and recertification process. I recommend, please, that everyone stay on the webinar for this part of the presentation, since it is relevant, I think, to all colleges as they're working on tracking their student outcome measures. So this is Sarah Hollister, and I'm going to go over a bit of background about the Leader College status and Achieving the Dream, and review the criteria for practice and performance. Talk about the Leader College application components, which is both for initial designation and recertification, and of course, return to any questions and comments you might have. So who can be a Leader College? Any Achieving the Dream institution that has completed their initial planning year may apply for Leader College status. The status is designated for 3 years, and after 3 years, institutions must undergo a recertification process to continue holding the Leader College status. There are no fees to apply or to be a Leader College, but the institution must be active in the Achieving the Dream network. So as I mentioned before, the Leader College designation is for 3 years. So institutions that were awarded Leader College status in 2011 are now up for recertification. You can see the list of colleges here on the screen. There are 22 colleges that must apply for recertification if they wish to maintain their Leader College status. So the benefits of being a Leader College are numerous. Leader Colleges are often given priority for certain competitive Achieving the Dream grant opportunities. They're recognized as sources of expert advice at DREAM and other learning events and in Achieving the Dream publications. They're also featured in Achieving the Dream promotional and technical assistance materials, and they're invited to use the Achieving the Dream Leader College logo. We do have certain roles and responsibilities that we ask of our Leader Colleges, since they are the leaders within our network. We ask that the institution advocate for the principles of Achieving the Dream, support other Achieving the Dream institutions within the community of learners, assist with the dissemination of lessons and promising practices, support the efforts to build a policy environment in their state and nationally, and of course continue to pursue Achieving the Dream's model for continuous improvement, student success, with a focus on equity and excellence. So there are 2 categories for the criteria for Leader College initial designation and recertification. Criteria for performance, which is measured by demonstrating at least 3 years of sustained improvement on at least one of the Achieving the Dream measures of student success for initial designation, and 2 Achieving the Dream measures for recertification. We also ask for evidence of meeting student needs by reaching a significant percentage of students, or otherwise known as the college's ability to scale proven student success initiatives. Criteria for practice is a demonstrated commitment to and progress on the 5 principles of Achieving the Dream. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about these 2 categories. The criteria for practice is, again, an assessment of the college's progress on the principles related to the Achieving the Dream student-centered model of institutional improvement. This is measured by a principles assessment that the leadership and data coaches fill out about each one of their colleges each spring. So just as your stakeholders are submitting a principles assessment, your coaches also submit a principles assessment to Achieving the Dream about your institution. So there's no further action required of colleges regarding this piece. The coaches will submit the principles assessment directly to achieving the dream. There's some certain minimum criteria on that assessment that we ask the colleges to meet, and you can see more information about those minimums in the application. We also use the college's annual reflection narrative to assess the progress of the institution on the institutional model of, on the student-centered model of institutional improvement. Criteria for performance is measured by your student success data. So Meredith talked a little bit about the student success data that you would gather for your annual reflection, as well as the required chart or graph that you'll submit. If your institution is applying for initial Leader College status or recertification, you are required to submit the chart or graph that you submit be the ATD data template. This is an Excel template that we've created to guide your cohort tracking and your data submission. There are certain levels of disaggregation that we ask for within the template, and this is all explained by opening up that data template and looking a little bit more detail at the Excel template. Again, for initial designation, we ask that you submit at least data on at least one ATD student success measure. For recertification, we ask that you submit data on 2. So we will look at your data for a general upward trend. So what we're looking for is to see that you have increased student success on at least 1 or 2 measures over the past 3 years compared to a year of baseline data. If you want to submit additional charts or graphs in addition to the data template, this can be done within the Leader College application narrative. Within the narrative, we also ask for a little bit more information about the initiatives or interventions that you attribute to your college's success. So we ask that you list those interventions that you've put into the intervention showcase in the application so that we can see which ones you attribute to the success. We also ask for some information about scaling related to at least one intervention over the past year. I want to emphasize that the narrative from each college explaining their student outcome data, interventions, and other progress is very important. We realize that the data that you submit in the data template may not be a complete upward trend. We realize that there might be fluctuations, achievement gaps that are identified, or other factors. Your chance to explain these fluctuations, achievement gaps, and your general trend is done in the Leader College application narrative. So we ask that you really look at your data template and you look at your narrative and make sure that they coincide and that they complement each other. So I'm going to just review a little bit the application components. If you're applying for initial Leader College designation, we will look at your 2014 annual reflection narrative as well as your Leader College application narrative. I want to point out a very important piece if you're applying for initial designation. We do require that you have a conversation with your coaches, both your leadership and your data coach, about the readiness of your institution to apply for Leader College status. And we will be asking for a signature verifying this conversation in the application. You'll also be submitting the ATD data template when you apply for initial Leader College status. Data should be completed in that template for at least one student success outcome measure. And then, of course, we will also look at your intervention showcase update when considering Leader College status. For recertification, again, we will look at the college's annual reflection narrative and the Leader College application narrative. The data template that you submit should have data for at least 2 student success outcome measures. And then we will also look at the intervention showcase update. This is just a screenshot of what the data template looks like. We've created this template with many drop-downs and pre-populations and guiding text to make sure that you're led through the data submission process. Between this and the data specifications that are in the appendix of your annual reflection narrative, you should have a lot of information about exactly how to define the ATD student outcome measures. Of course, if you have any questions as you're going through this process, you can always send an email to info@achievingthedream.org with your questions. We ask that you do put in the message of the, the subject of the message, if this is related to Leader College application or Leader College recertification. Now I'll turn it over to Meredith, who will just review briefly each of these components that we've talked about, and then we'll go back to questions.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So on this slide, we show as a recap each of the components of the annual reflection, as well as how to submit the documents. So things to keep in mind, the Principals Assessment Survey. You can access the link to the online survey on the Annual College Progress site. We ask that you and your colleagues submit this online survey by April 10th, and you will receive an email from Achieving the Dream with a summary of these responses by April 23rd. If you have any questions about this or any of the other components of the annual reflection, please email info@achievingthedream.org. Next, the annual reflection narrative. And so you can access this template on the Annual College Progress site. We will be sending your college's core team leaders a link to submit this document by April 4th, and your core team leaders will get reminder emails that have the link again as the due date gets closer. And again, this is, you need to submit this by May 8th. Then the chart or graph, and so you'll submit this by May 8th. The intervention showcase, we're going to send you instructions on how to update your showcase information, and we ask that you provide any updates or any new interventions by May 8th. And then Sarah was just talking about the initial Leader College application or the Leader College recertification application. These are optional. And you will access these applications also on the Annual College Progress site. You will submit them via the link that your core team leaders are going to receive April 4th, and then receive those reminders after April 4th. And we ask that you submit this Leader College initial application or recertification application also by May 8th. So May 8th is a big date, and April 23rd is a big date for the principal's assessment. So that's just a brief overview. You'll be getting reminders and more information, and of course you can always look on the Annual College Progress site or email us at info@achievingthedream.org. But now we want to make sure to go back to you and to see if you have any questions. I know that Melanie has been getting some questions through the questions box, or if you'd like to raise your hand and we can open your line so you can ask the question. So thank you.
So we have a question about, on the annual reflection, question 5, section 2, asking to clarify the instruction, please provide one response per outcome measure.
Right. Okay, so what we asked for in question 5, section 2, in each of your responses, so we ask for one response per measure. So when we talk about a measure, the first measure is that measure of completion of remedial or developmental instruction, for example. We ask that in this one response that is 2 to 4 paragraphs long, that you describe both your institution's progress in comparison with previous year outcomes, and an explanation of your institution's progress in closing achievement gaps among the disaggregated student groups. So we ask for you to address both in that response.
Is the data template used for the annual reflections narrative the same as the data template required for the Leader College application?
Yes, it is. So if you are applying for Leader College status, the data template that you can use as your chart or graph for the annual reflection will also be the data template that we use for your Leader College application in order to synthesize the two components.
And in that same vein, it would appear to be the case that can information used in the annual reflection narrative also be used in the Leader College application?
Yeah.
And we have a question from Connie Ronco. So Connie, I will unmute you. All right, Connie, you are off of mute. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, hi. I was just wondering, when I was looking at the annual reflection progress site, or the annual college progress site, it looked like the last date that that information for our college was submitted was 2012. Now, would this year's be considered 2013, or would this considered 2014? Because we did submit one for 2013, last May. So I'm just a little confused about how you're using the dates. Are you using the dates from the fall date or the spring date?
Connie, that's a great question. So we're using the dates, so we're calling this the 2014 annual reflection, so we're using the spring date.
So, yes, so I wonder why I only have 2012 data then at that site, because when I looked yesterday, it looked like it was just from 2012, and we submitted one last year in 2013, spring 2013.
So I think perhaps, Connie, you might be referring to the data submission site.
Yes. No, I was
okay.
It was the annual plan, the annual reflection site that I looked at.
Right. So at the annual reflection, at the annual college progress site, we actually don't have any data stored there for colleges. What we have are all of the documents posted that a college would need in order to complete and submit the annual college progress process.
Okay, right. I looked at that. Sorry, I'm thinking of the annual reflection.
The data submission site does have data submitted, and perhaps, Wei, are you on? Could you maybe tell a little bit about the data submission site for folks?
Hi, I'm here. I believe for our data submission site, the current reporting cycle is 2012 to 13.
Oh, okay.
And if you submit data for 2012 to 13, that should be reflected in your data products, like the Excel book and the overview report. I can't see your account information now, but if you notice that our report is not up to date, please let me know. Usually that might be a problem. Probably some of the data files not approved, things like that.
Okay. I'll recheck that and look at that. I have sent a couple of messages to info@achievingthedream.org, and I haven't gotten any responses back. So is that that is where we're supposed to send the questions and things that we need information on?
Yes, that is correct. And so you should be receiving responses very shortly. I'm sorry if there's been a delay there, and we'll look into that right away.
Okay.
But if any colleges do have questions about the data that's in the data products as well, you can also use that info@achievingthedream.org, and we will be sure to get that to the appropriate staff member in order to get your questions answered.
Okay, one last thing. Is this webinar PowerPoint available, or can you make that available?
So this webinar is being recorded, and the PowerPoint will also be posted, and it will all be posted on the annual college progress site.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions, Melanie?
Question about the Leader College application. Do the student success outcome measures have a time frame on them, i.e. completing courses with C or better in the first 3 years, or completing developmental English and math within 2 years?
So all of the specifications are actually listed in the template, and so in terms of completing the course, there is no specific time frame attached to that. Rhonda, do you want to talk a little bit about the measure that the question is referring to?
Sure. Your data product also may be able to give you some information on that. Way, if I understand correctly, that data product reflects this new calculation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I think Sarah, you've answered the question well. I'm not sure how I can add very much to that.
Great. So basically, there's no specific time period there, but you can also look at the data products. Melanie, do you have any other questions in the queue there?
For clarification, we are using data from spring 2013 to 2014?
So I think perhaps we'll pause here and talk a little bit about the data. So I'm not sure whether that refers to the Leader College application or the annual reflection. But what we do ask you to do in the annual reflection is to look as far back, ideally 4 years back, in your data. Obviously, we understand that colleges are at different stages in their data collection and analysis. So if that is not possible to go at least 4 years back, then please just indicate how far back you are able to look when commenting on your data. The Leader College application, which is using the data template, has specifications about how far back you should go, and actually has academic years attached in the template. So you can choose one of 2 academic years for the most recent data that you have access to. You select that, and the template will pre-populate for you with the years of data that you should enter.
Is it possible for institutions that are both achieving the dream and completion by design to use related completion by design measures in the data template?
Sure. So the data template and the APD student outcome measures all have specifications attached to them. I am not up to date on the most recent completion by design measures and how they compare, but we do ask that you submit information, data, according to the specifications that we have laid out for the 5 Achieving the Dream student outcome measures. Any other questions?
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to participate in today's webinar. We will be following up with an email that includes a link to the webinar recording that you can share with your colleagues. And please do not hesitate if you have any questions as you move forward through your annual reflection process to reach out to your coaches or to Achieving the Dream staff who can help respond to your questions. Thanks again and have a good afternoon.
The organizer has ended the